Razor 94.7 104.7.
Ayron Jones, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. We're chatting to with all sorts of artists about how they've battled through some mental health. They've overcome some issues, and I just got to ask, what's your story? What do you got for us?
My story. Wow. So my album's called Child of States, and primarily because when I was a kid, my mom was about 19 years old when she had me, and my dad wasn't too much older, but he really couldn't handle. He was really never around, and my mom was dealing with. It was like a big drug epidemic of the 90s. So she was dealing with a lot of addiction issues and could not be a consistent parent. And so when I turned, let's see, it's about 7 years old or so, I got taken in by my aunt because my mom had left me at daycare and never came back to grab me. So the state called my auntie to pick me up, and she took me in from there. And yeah, so I mean, and as you can imagine, like that had a lot of repercussions on my mental health as a kid and then as an adult growing up. And for me, it took a lot to overcome that and kind of figure that out. And now that I'm, in my 30s, I finally think I've got it figured out. Some days, and then other days I don't, So, but it took a lot to work through all that,
That's very heavy stuff. What kind of things did you have to do to, like, living with someone with addiction and man, I can't even imagine. What did you have to do to find yourself on the other side of it?
Just work through it, man. Sometimes there are certain traumatic events that happen in your life. I mean, especially it wasn't even really just the addiction. Like the addiction was part of it, but like just the fact that my mom, I saw her in and out of these different things. The street life, for instance. I remember when I was living out here in Capitol Hill in Seattle, my mom had called me up to come see her new place. She was so excited. But she was living in this tent city, and I remember going to her house, and it was just like a tent and a cardboard box in the middle, and all that, And so a lot of these different events that happened throughout my life, and they were traumatic, to say the least, and so I had to learn how to live with the trauma as opposed to trying to get rid of it. I think that was the downfall of a lot of people is they want to try to overcome it by saying, oh, I'm over it. It's never, the pain is gone. It never really goes away. It's always something that's going to be stuck with you, but you have to learn how to live with it. If you can learn how to live with it and be okay with it and just like allow it to be a part of you, but not necessarily become your identity, I think that's the best way to handle things like that, because there are certain things that you're just not going to, the human brain is not meant to overcome, and that, for me, that was one of those things.
Man, that's so like all sorts of childhood trauma, and then now you're making music. That's your profession.
Yeah.
And tell me how, like, what music was like for you. You grew up in did you say Seattle you grew up
Yep.
in?
Born and
So
raised in Seattle.
growing up in a pretty wild music scene has got to be a bit of an escape, and maybe in a way to heal some past traumas.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, it felt, sometimes it felt that way. It was, Seattle is an interesting place, to grow up and live. And music became my outlet from a young age. And that really helped me overcome a lot of the things. I mean, it gave me an outlet to speak about those things openly. I think that's part of why, Child of the State, my record was such a personal record for me. And it allowed me this avenue to share the things I'd gone through and to speak about my story in hopes that there were other people out there that experienced the same. And, I can't tell you how many times I, spoke with people or talked to people on the road or get messages about people who've been through similar stuff, as adopted people or as parents who faced addiction or whatever. I mean, our country is such an interesting place because it simultaneously you have like these mega riches and you have like this ultra poor thing happening, and mixed up in between both of these worlds is like it's drugs. I mean, really, and so there's a lot of people out there that are adopted. There's a lot of people out there that face very, very similar things. And for me, music create this outlet for me to get to connect with those people, and that was so healing for me in a lot of ways.
So tell me about the writing and how did you it must have been a bit of a catharsis to write those things down and then also to get these out to a big audience. I mean, your songs have been all across the world. You
Yeah.
know, Supercharged, Mercy, in the latest Hot Friends, man. You're hot right now,
Yeah.
and people are really digging your stuff. You know, what's it like now to be able to talk to these mass audiences of about this, that your past and the life that you've lived?
It's been therapeutic, I suppose, for me. It's like just to know that you're not alone. I mean, that was like a big factor, man. Just knowing that I'm not alone in the world when it comes to these things, dealing with these things, these type of traumas and these pains, that, I mean, the loneliness is the part I think that people have the hardest time overcoming. It's like, no, like thinking that they're the only ones that are dealing with it. They're the only ones that are going through it. So I think that just having people around to be able to share that kind of stuff with, and then also another, once you're able to open up your heart and talk about the things that are most concerning to you, it starts to make it easier to deal with it too, man. Like you don't have to think about it so much anymore. It's not such a detriment to your heart. It's like, it just is what it is. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't hurt anymore because you're able to say, no, man, like I went through this. It's like when you go through a breakup, you've been through a breakup and then you talk your friend's ears off. You're like, oh, my heart's so broken. It's so broken. It's so broken. And after like 2 months of that, your friend's like, shut up, like get over it. That's kind of how it feels though. It's like, maybe it's not like such a, and not in so many words, you're like, shut up, but it's like, yeah, man, like, yeah, that's what I've been through. And it's not like, it's still shocking, I'm sure, to people to have to hear that from me, to say, yeah, I've been through this really crazy thing. But I don't think that people are I don't feel nearly as like, what's the word? As hurt, like I don't feel like that deep sinking feeling in my stomach anymore when I say, hey man, like my mom did this, she died early, my dad died early, these things happened in my life. It's no longer that for me. It's like, yeah, man, here's my story. And it has been my platform that I've used to create a prosperous life for myself, So I think that has been the most helpful part for me, was like turning this pain into a triumph.
That's a really, I've heard many different ways that people have said, like, turning pain into triumph, and I think
Yeah.
that's something that the creative people like you and the rest of the music industry are able to do, and something that us like non super creative riff-tastic people can't really
Right.
do all the time. So we
Yeah.
have to live vicariously through your music.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so so you're at that point where your platform's pretty big now, and what do you want to do in the future that you think will, do you want to continue to help people, or do you have other creative goals that you want to accomplish?
I do have other creative goals I want to accomplish, but I've asked myself that same question. How do you tie this into that? And I think representing something that is, like showing people that you can turn this pain into triumph is the best way to do that, man. That's the only way really, is to turn, teach people that, like, even though you've gone through this hard time, that you can become and do anything, take that and put it out to the world. I think some of the most creative people in the world are the ones who have been through the most, um, I hope to continue to inspire, be one of those people for people, like for people to look up to and say, like, doesn't have to be my life. Because I mean, people go through a hard time, and I mean, especially when I'm traveling, especially in the South, like that's the part of the country when I travel the most, and like I think I hear it the most, where people are really hurting in the South, man. And just the fact that you come to their town and just to be able to say what's up, and like they tell you, man, you helped me get through this time. I met a cat in Huntsville recently who told me his mom passed away, and it was just like a really heavy story, man. And like, but he told me how much it meant that an artist like myself was able to talk about things like that, and like how it helped him get through, man. But it was touching, And so I think that if I can continue to be prosperous and to be good at what I do, I think that it's going to ultimately do what I set out to do, which is like create, make people feel good about themselves, no
Uh,
matter what.
That's that's really inspiring. And
Yeah.
my dad just died a couple of months ago,
Sorry
um,
to hear that, man. That's rough.
and yeah, it sucks. And but it's like, through all these talks I've done and now talking with you, I've talked to a lot of people that have been like, we've been through that, and it's incredible to, like, because when you're in the midst of it, you can't really see the end. You
Right.
can't see the
Right.
forest or the trees or whatever they say. But it is inspiring, and we are so appreciative of artists to be able to dive into that unsettling, that sadness, the darkness of all the grief and traumas and things, to bring out something that we can hold on to for our lives. And so
Right.
it is a
Right.
heartfelt thank you.
Oh man, well, I do it. I thank you, man. Without the people like yourself and the ears to hear it, like what is music? It's like that old, what's that old adage? The with the tree falling in the wood, if there's no one around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. It's like these are co-creations that we all live through, and I'm just a reflection of a scenario in the universe that can happen to anybody, man. So like, I appreciate the fact that there are people like yourself and others out there that are reflecting that right now. It's what keeps me going. It inspires me to do what I do.
Well, we're so excited to see what you're going to do next, and hopefully you can come up to the north and hang out with us. I'm sure you'll meet some cool cats here in Green Bay,
Yeah,
maybe.
man.
But Ayron Jones, thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been great.